Welcome to Calm After the Storm. I'm Alessia Parker, team lead for CCP, Texans Recovering Together. We are here also with co-host
Kesha Montgomery.
Today our topic is grief and loss after a disaster.
So we want to dive into the effects of grief and the different levels that it can affect individuals. And we know that grief and loss does affect everyone differently. We have our guest panel here today with us in studio. And who do we have here, ladies? If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Raven. I'm a community engagement coordinator for Team Barrel.
Hi, I'm Shenah Thomas. I am a crisis counselor for the Team Derecho.
And I'm Tamika, and I am a community resource specialist with the Barrel team.
Awesome. So we're going to take a deep dive into this month's topic of grief and loss. And hopefully you will walk away with some additional tools to put in your toolkit if in fact this is something near and dear to your heart. And I believe, we all have had some level or degree of loss and processing that grief and what that journey looks like. I'd like to pivot over to Tamika to kind of explore what does that process look like, and where does it start? What are some of the signs and symptoms? Because we may not identify that we are actually grieving. What does that look like?
So grief is the emotional response to a significant loss, often involving feelings of sadness, pain, anger, confusion, or even numbness. It's a natural reaction to losing someone or something important, such as a loved one, a relationship, a job, or even a sense of identity or security. Loss refers to the actual experience of something being taken away or no longer available. This could be the death of a loved one, at the end of a relationship, or even a non-tangible losses, like the loss of a dream, routine, or future you envision. Grief is personal and unique to each individual, and the process is not linear. Many people move through stages such as denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. But these stages may not occur in order, and not everyone experiences them in the same way. Ultimately, grief is a journey of coming to terms with loss, finding ways to cope, and over time, learning to integrate the loss into your life while moving forward.
Wow. So grief looks so different. It could be the loss of things, the loss of people, pets. Grief and loss is really impactful because you never know what that would look like for someone.
Yeah, especially dealing with the disasters that we've all experienced, like Beryl and Derecho. A lot of families lost mementos, like family pictures, wedding pictures. I know we're in the era of everything's digital, but there are some people still out there that have photo albums, that keep photo albums that, chronologue their life to pass on. It's a legacy to pass on to their children and their grandkids. And so that is a loss. And with them coming out of the storms and trying to get to some normalcy, knowing that they can't get that back. What are some things that you all may have experienced with some of the survivors that you come in contact with in Harris County?
I would say that some people that I've experienced, kind of speaking to what you said, but they do lose momentum, that they do feel like they have to put their life on hold, and kind of they're no longer striving for like their hopes and dreams that they were striving for before. Then now they have to focus on, I was saving money for whatever, but now they have to use all of it for their house, or they have to use all of it to fix everything. And it's kind of like that loss of the future that they were hoping for.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You don't realize that when you have to, use funds that you may have been saving, or savings that, you might have had for a rainy day, and then it comes a rainy day, right, and now your savings is depleted.
Yeah.
So, people really have to focus on, how impactful this may be, and recognize it. Because if you don't recognize what grief and loss looks like, it'll really affect you emotionally.
And it can look different. What how I present with my grief may look different than Raven or Shenah, or Tamika's journey. It may look like, I'm sleeping all the time, versus someone else. They may keep busy because they don't want to think about what they've lost. So that's also important. Just being able to kind of take a self look at yourself and say, hey, something's a little off kilter about me. What could it possibly be? I know we talked about the stages of grief and the anger and the denial. Are you all seeing in the community when you're working with the survivors that some are still angry even months after the storms?
Yes. I have met with some survivors who are still impacted by Hurricane Harvey. Yeah, Harvey. So, and that was many years ago. And some of them are still experiencing those, that sadness, that grief, the trauma from that. So we'll talk about it and we think about different ways they'll be able to cope with the situation, thinking of positive things, thinking of the outcome and stuff like that. Just giving them some empowerment, to be resilient. Yeah.
People have to recognize what trauma looks like. I know for me, when Harvey hit, I was 4 days from a C-section. And so, luckily my neighborhood was like an island, but the way other people were impacted is, pretty devastating for them.
Yeah.
And to have these storms come and recreate the devastation, can be traumatic because you just fix your home and then now this again. So.
Yeah.
How do you start to build and rebuild after something so traumatic? After, whether it's losing a pet, losing your home, maybe it was your childhood home that you grew up in. Where do you start?
Honestly, I feel like it just depends on the person and them just determining what is a priority and kind of going from there. So what it may look like for me or what it may look like for Raven, it's totally different. Like my priority may be if it was something as far as the storm that affected my house and my car. For me, shelter is going to be my most important thing for me to take a look at. And maybe for Raven, it's her car because that's her means to do other things to get to make the money that she needs to make in order to, replenish, to move forward with, making the repairs for her home. So it just kind of depends on the person.
Yeah.
Like pets.
Oh, pets. Yeah.
Pets. I see a lot of individuals that, for some reason, maybe they had to evacuate soon and the pet wasn't able to be brought with them. Yeah. Or they're going to a shelter and the pet wasn't allowed at the shelter. Yeah. Have you guys worked with anyone that did lose a pet? Whether it was either one of these storms or a storm in the past, or I can speak from personal experience. I lost my pet. Well, one of my pets, the longest living pet. I've had him 16 years. He's been gone a year. And there's still moments where I find myself like, oh man, I wish he was here. And, he used to snuggle with me in the bed and, he's no longer there. And so I can't imagine it being caused, and he was old, so it was brought on naturally. But losing a pet to a storm, I think that just kind of makes it even worse. Just because it was unexpected, as with any other loss. I don't know if you could ever really plan for any loss, but if someone's ill and you kind of work through that process with them, it's kind of in the back of your mind. But these storms come so quickly, and they take away so much. So I know you guys have seen a lot out in Harris County. You are the boots on the ground. You've heard a lot of stories. But talk to me a little bit about how do you get them and get the residents of Harris County engaged in wanting to create that space and sit in with you all to kind of talk about just the experiences with the survivors that you all see in the community. How do you get them to feel safe and secure to even start talking about the grief and loss that they've experienced?
Okay, so as for me, it's the approach. I always approach them with transparency, compassion, a compliment, ask them how they doing, how's their day, how's things going, and that way it opens up because they see that I'm there. I'm not just there to just hand them a flyer and tell them about a program, but I'm actually there too about their concerns. what is affecting them, how can I help them, how can I be able to be assistant to them, and what services I can offer to them. Most of the time, I'm very transparent. Also, if I speak to someone and we have a real connection, like, they're really interested in the program and they really need support, I don't just leave them with a flyer. I give them my number. Yes. So I'll have them be able to contact me directly. And I'm like, listen, I need you to text me. I need you to call me so we can follow through and we can get you the things that you need.
That's awesome.
Okay. We've had some amazing developments with supporting the community and recognizing when someone needs just a little bit more. I know that getting those support groups can be hard, and getting people to open up can be harder. So getting that trust that you have is really impactful, and I commend you for that, because it's not easy. Some people will close up like a little flower and they will not let it out, but you're able to get people to open up really well. So that's amazing. So as far as coping, what does that look like, Raven? How I see you have some great ideas, and we talked about what that looks like. Have you had some impact with people in helping them cope through their disaster, and what levels of coping do we have?
So there's about 4 different levels of coping, or 4 different skills that you can kind of apply to finding a way to cope with your grief. The first one is emotional coping. This is allowing yourself to feel. This is shown through journaling, crying, expressing your emotions with your friends and family, or whoever you feel safe with. And then also practicing that self-compassion and like realizing that, like, it's okay that I feel this way and I'm allowed to feel this way and I can feel it for however long that I need to. There's the physical coping, which is taking care of your body. That's focusing on nutrition, hydration, exercising, playing whatever sport you like to do. I love playing volleyball, so when I feel really sad, I know that when I go play volleyball, I always feel better. And then you can engage in like relaxation techniques, deep breathing, meditation, if that's your thing, yoga, if that's your thing and it's not too hard.
Tell us a little bit about that. So there's relaxation techniques that people can do kind of at home in the car. What does that look like?
There's like the deep breathing, where you can breathe for like 10 seconds. You breathe in for 10, you breathe out for 10. There is listening to podcasts. There's a lot of things on YouTube as well that focus on meditation, and that just kind of help you center yourself. And like, again, focusing on your breathing and focusing on that nervous system, which kind of causes that fight or flight, all the time, and kind of getting that to come under wraps. Additionally, there's social coping. So that's, again, like leaning on your support system, leaning on your friends, leaning on your family, and your community, whether that's church or sports or Little League or whatever it is.
Texans recovering
together. Exactly. Relying on your community to find that support, and also seeking that professional help, whether that's, if that's really what you need, if that's counseling like we offer here, therapists or support groups, which we could also help you find. And the last one is just finding meaning and purpose. And that's reflecting on positive memories or legacies of maybe the people you've lost, the pets that you've lost, the home that you've lost. And then exploring the spiritual or the philosophical practices if they resonate with you. And then maybe channeling that grief into creative outlets, or channeling it into exercising a lot, or channeling it into like art or writing or volunteering. A lot of times when Houston goes through a natural disaster, we all kind of come together and everyone's volunteering their time, even if their home is the one that needs the help.
Definitely. Yeah.
So those are kind of the ways, the kind of skills for grief and loss.
Awesome.
So what I heard is basically you have to accept what has happened. You have to recognize when you're experiencing something, because you said emotional. So you have to recognize those emotional
signs
so you can cope through that.
Changed.
And then communicate. So communicate with your friends and family that you're not doing well, because, or listen to what people are saying, because maybe somebody recognizes that you're not doing well and you may not even recognize it yet.
Yeah.
And then learning those self-care techniques, finding new things to do, or even previous activities that you enjoy to kind of help you work through that. So you gave some good coping techniques. Yeah. I like journaling, but I also like crossword puzzles. So it zones me in for the crossword puzzles. So finding things you enjoy.
I will go down a rabbit hole on YouTube in a minute. Next thing I know, I've been on YouTube for like 2 hours.
And you're not even watching what you originally started. I'm not even watching what I
originally started with. So
I think YouTube is such a good tool because it has access to so much information, especially for things like grief and loss or meditation and yoga. It's just such a helpful tool. I think I've used, there's a lot of times where I felt like I couldn't sleep from anxiety. And so, I would listen to Rain, or I would fall asleep to this one like channel where it just like spoke to you. And it was, I don't really know if it was hypnosis. I don't want to use that word, but it kind of is, where it's like someone is speaking to you and just calming you. And it's like, telling you to breathe, telling you to like find space in your body and things like that. So I think that was really helpful.
That's a really good one.
That one. I do use the Rain from time to time.
Yeah, it was really helpful.
Nice.
So what does resources look like? Texas Recovering Together does really good with resources and helping the community. Once they recognize what they need, what does that look like? So what is the resource part of like getting out there, and what do we have to offer?
Well, some of the resources that we do offer, like we talked about the group counseling sessions, we do have some currently coming up starting in March. Understanding and processing grief and loss is one of them. And then the next series is building resilience and coping with stress, as well as rebuilding hope and planning for the future, strengthening social support and community bonds, which basically is kind of just giving the community an opportunity to express those things that they've experienced or they've gone through, and also letting them know that we're here for them to support them. And so they do have somewhere they can go for those resources, as well as they have someone that they can, just have as a support for them. And another thing that we also have is a resource for individuals that are experiencing any type of crisis is the 988 prevention hotline. That's through the Harris Center. And just to kind of touch on the 988, just letting you know that it is available 24/7, 365 days. Your access to a trained counselor. It basically ensures the individuals in crisis can reach out for help at any time of the day or night. So like I said, it doesn't have to necessarily be a crisis. You can still reach out to this number and still get help. It's confidential, non-judgmental assistance. It's a local expertise and resource. It provides prevention and intervention focus. And it's really quick with the response time for you to be connected to an actual counselor. So it's not like you're waiting online for a very long time.
No, I really like the 988 line. I was one of the first access and crisis line members here at the Harris Center years ago. And even at that point, we were really quick to answer questions and get the information out that individuals may need, whether it be mental health information, whether it be a crisis like a suicide call where someone needed to talk, to get through what they were experiencing. And then the next step was getting help. So 988 is a beautiful thing. I really commend the staff who work the 988 line because it could be a really tough job, but it's really helping the community during a time of a crisis, whether it's following a disaster and people are really stressing and having that crisis, or if they're in some type of suicide or homicidal state and they need to just talk through what they're experiencing. So 988 is a good resource as well.
In addition to those resources, we also help them find food pantries just in case they're having a food disparity. We locate food pantries in the area. We help them with rental assistance, we connect them to agency that can provide those services with them. If they need utilities, we connect them to agency that can provide those services to them as well. So we do, outside of the mental health, we look for resources. Say if they had a downed tree due to the storm, we connect them to agency that can help them with that. If they need help with FEMA application, we can assist them with that as well.
Okay, so we do a lot of, resource guiding as far as support groups. We do a lot of resource guiding as far as like the physical needs, food, clothing, furniture, disaster recovery as far as like tree removal. So I really love that Texas Recovering Together does a lot of good work for the community and has a lot to offer. Right. And it's free.
It's free.
Yes.
I wanted to talk a little bit, though. I know we talked about, pretty heavy topic today, grief and loss. And so Shenah was mentioning all the wonderful things that TRT is doing in the community. And I want to hear about some of those testimonials from, some of the great work that you guys have done out in the community. We mentioned furniture resources. We've been able to get community people in our community furniture, food. Can we speak a little bit about in real time all the awesome stories, success stories that you all have? I want to share each share a story of success so that our listeners can see the beauty in our program.
Okay, I can start. So when I first came onto the program, I had was assigned to an individual, elderly woman who needed assistance with her FEMA application. She stated that she applied, but she was denied. Long story short, her and I got together at a public library, and we was able to process the application. We was able to submit the application online. Less than a week, she was contacted by someone from FEMA that came out to her house to investigate the damages to her property. And then the following week, she received a check for all the damages, so she was able to pay to have her fence fixed.
Okay, so that's amazing. So you were able to help her get her fence fixed, FEMA application, and then she received payment to actually get the fence fixed. So that is amazing. Anybody else have testimonials or any results that they've experienced while working with us?
I spoke to a woman this morning, and I used to work for a dialysis clinic, doing research there. Anyway, so I understand a lot about the people who, go on dialysis and what their lives are like. And this morning at my church where we were, talking about this stuff, she opened up to me and she was like, actually, I start dialysis for the first time today. Oh, wow. And I immediately understood, or at least I knew the gravity kind of what she was feeling, and that it is a very traumatic experience for a lot of people. And so kind of going through that grief and loss where, a lot of people who do dialysis, they do lose a lot of their time. A lot of independence, kind of maybe that loss of future, as I spoke about earlier. And so I actually was speaking to her and I was kind of, telling her about the Harris Center and at least around, the counseling services that we do provide. And she told me about how she was really interested in possibly starting or attending a support group. And so I thought that was, really helpful. And I hope, obviously that was today, and I have no idea what the future is going to hold, but I do think it's very interesting because people do look for those support groups. And while it may not be directly tied to Beryl, the Harris Center is here to help for all things, especially regarding mental health and that trauma and grief and loss. And so hopefully that it was great to be able to connect her to a resource and, kind of get her signed up so that we can hopefully help her in some way, at least in a way that we can.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's really impactful when you talk to someone and they're experiencing something that you have experience with, because and you can talk to them more in depth than someone that, if you didn't have experience with dialysis. I had a patient who had dialysis in the past, and I know it's time. He would spend 8 hours or 8 or 9 hours at the dialysis clinic. That's a full-time job.
It is.
For us. And so, and then the loss of energy, because even later that day, you don't have the energy to actually function and do for yourself. So you're dependent on other people. You're no longer an independent person. You depend on someone to help you cook or clean or take care of yourself. So I'm not happy you had that conversation, but I'm happy that you had experience with that and that you could fulfill that conversation with that person.
You could just tell that her eyes just lit up. She was like, oh, wait, like, you do understand. Like, you know exactly what I'm going through. And she even gave me a hug after. She was like, it was so great getting to speak to you. But, like, being able to make those connections and, help people realize that, like, I see you. Yes. And, like, I'm here to help in whatever way that I can. And while I can't give you a kidney, I can help in whatever other way, give you support and help you accept whatever is going on.
Yeah, it's important for people when someone else recognizes their experience. It's hard to be alone in those type of experiences. And when somebody knows exactly what's happening, it's a sense of relief, and they can let go a little bit and actually communicate, okay, this is what's happening with me. And someone knows.
Well, that's awesome. I always like to get feedback on our persons and individuals in Harris County that we're serving, and kind of, see what the stories are and the challenges are out in the community. As we know with grief, different cultures experience grief differently as well. What have you all noticed in the community when working with different cultures and how they process through that grief process?
But for me, some seem angry. They're frustrated because they're not getting the services that they need. So they seem a little frustrated. But when we encounter each other, I give them a sense of peace. And that's what I like versus the different, diverse communities. Is always the same outcome, because it's all the compassion level that they feel from you. So that you really changed what's going on. So once they understand that you're there to help, and you give them that guidance, the peace starts to come over them. Absolutely. And I like to see things through. So if I speak to an individual when they're going through a situation, I give them my word that I'm going to help you through as much as I can, but I need you to work with me. Yes. But there's some people at times where they're unable to do certain things for themselves. So that's when I'll be the advocate for them, and I'll speak up for them. So that's when I go above and beyond. That's what I say, but I want to make sure that it's seen through, and I want to make sure they have the peace. At least they know we tried. I had one individual, it was a family of two. They were so frustrated. We have no answers from FEMA. We're getting a runaround. So at the time, FEMA was in, they was at site. So I searched the location where they was at. I told them to go in person and speak to the individual. So they did. Maybe a few days later, application approved.
Wow.
Awesome. So it's just about encouraging them, giving them information, because they didn't know. Some people don't know that they didn't know.
They don't know it's available, or how to even navigate that process.
Yes.
Yeah. Some people, their frustrations take over, and they're not able to just hone in on exactly what they need. They just know they're frustrated and things are not getting done. Right. But once you can find a sense of self and like, okay, well, let me just take in the situation and take the time to focus on what it is I need, then I can actually probably make, get results. Right. But that frustration takes over.
It takes a lot of energy.
Yeah. And sometimes
get things done because of it. Sometimes we get in our own way.
Yep. Absolutely. And sometimes being frustrated, you're not able to communicate.
Yeah.
So people don't understand exactly what you need. I was just with someone yesterday, and they were a little frustrated. So they was on the phone speaking to the doctor's office to try to get them to fax over information, but they were so frustrated that they weren't communicating well. So the doctor didn't understand what they need. Yeah. So I was like, take a deep breath, and then go again. And then it worked out. Yeah. So just have to,
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I would like to take a step back in this to discuss our own experiences. Did you guys have any coping that you had to do during the storm or after the storm? Were you affected in any way, and how you managed through it? Because I know CCP, Texans Recovering Together, started after the storm. But how did you work through your experience, if you had any experiences following our disasters?
Well, for myself, the only thing that I actually experienced was no lights for about like 5 days, which means that we did lose food and things like that. But overall, I feel like we managed. I'm a outside the box thinker. And so we have a truck, and the truck has the 3 prongs in there. And I was like, we're going to hook up the power cord to the truck and use it as a generator. And that's what we were able to do. So we were able to power the downstairs part of the house. Because I just started thinking, I'm like, okay, what's going to happen? Like, we don't have lights, So I just used the truck, made sure it was gassed up, and we were able to, use power for, we had extension cords everywhere, but oh well. We made it work. Everybody was sleeping downstairs, and but for the most part, I mean, we were very fortunate. We didn't really experience any other losses, just other than the lights and, the food.
Okay. Yeah. I think during Hurricane Beryl, I'm thankful my family lives in Houston. They live in Rocheron. So anytime there's a storm, I live by myself. So I'm like, Mom and Dad, I'm coming. So I drove down to Rocheron. We get to their house, and I'm there. The lights go out, which is fine. It took a while before our lights officially went out. But after that, I, at the time, lived in the medical center. So my mom also has multiple sclerosis. And so a lot of times when she gets really frustrated or too hot or just overstimulated in general, it's just really bad for her nervous system. So she can't be too hot. She has to be in perfect condition all the time. So thank goodness I was living in the medical center at the time, which practically never loses power. I think my apartment, I lived there for 3 years. I never once lost power for any reason. So it was my mom, my dad, me, my sister, and we had a family friend staying with. So 5 people, all adults, staying in my 600 square foot apartment for 2 days. My parents take my bed. So of course I'm on the couch. My couch has no pull out, nothing. It's just a regular couch. Oh my goodness, it was a mess. But we survived. We stuck together. My parents cooked. They brought all their food because, of course, I have none. I'm just a girl. I have no food in my apartment. So my parents brought all of their food that they didn't want to go to waste in their refrigerator. And, we had a good time being stuck in 600 square feet. But, we made it through. But it was definitely a hard moment. And I think especially for myself, where I felt like, okay, I have to take care of my family now. I have no food, but I have to take care of my family now. And that can be traumatic, where those roles kind of, reverse. Yeah.
I had that experience during Ike. I had a small apartment, and my mom and brother and sister and stepdad all had to come stay in my little apartment. And so I had to experience, my brother and sister sleeping with me, and then sharing my living space with other people. So going from one person in a small apartment to now 5.
5 is crazy.
Yeah. So, that changes your perspective of, okay, they used to take care of me, but okay, now I have the opportunity to return the favor. So that changes your outlook on the disaster and how you can help others and step outside of yourself and, open your door where typically it's just you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Mine is kind of similar. I always go, and I'm the person that goes out to the shelters or the food banks, and I'm working. Mm-hmm. So I pass the time and cope by staying busy. Because if I sit at home, I'm just going to fester in the fact that we have no electricity. Yeah. So why not go out and help people? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how I cope when disasters come. I'm at the George R. Brown or wherever the shelters are, kind of helping navigate that.
And as for me, this is my very first from New York, so I'm like, what's going on? What is going on? We was out without power for 2 days. But during that time, I'm like, I'm going home.
I want to go, right? You want to leave. You want to go back home.
Yeah.
What did I do? Why did I move here?
I just sat in the car, charged up my phone, actually went down to Target. Mm-hmm. Everybody was there that you charge up electronics. my community is pretty good. So everybody was out by the pool, so we had lights. So the lights were reflecting into my bedroom, so I didn't feel so bad.
Yeah.
And I just slept at night. And I just started I can't control this.
Mm-hmm.
I went by the hospital to see if I can charge, because I used to work for Memorial Hermann down the street from me. And I thought they had, they had generators, but you couldn't charge your stuff up. But I just went in there to sit down, eat, and be around people, So, and then I helped neighbors as well.
Help the community.
It's all about reaching out to someone else. If you're helping, then you feel a sense of importance,
purpose.
Yeah. So that's amazing that we all have a different perspective and way of coping through these situations. Have you guys found any practices that are personal for you? Like I said, I do like the crossword puzzles or the fill-in puzzles for myself. What are your personal practices to cope?
Me? It would be worship. Yeah.
Praying is important.
Yeah, definitely so. And worship. Yeah.
Tamika, what about you?
I'm gonna say I'm a spiritual person as well, but I also like to journal, and I like crossword puzzles. I have one of those big jumbo books too.
Raven, what about you?
I heavily rely on therapy. Me and my therapist have been locked in for 4 years.
Nice.
I rely on her so much, but that helps me process so much of my life, whether it's grief from friends, relationships, hurricanes. Having that outlet has been really great.
Awesome.
What about you?
I'm a YouTube trash TV kind of person.
Oh, yeah.
And shopping. So I don't know if that's a positive coping skill or a negative. I don't know. But that's what I do.
Positive, for sure.
Yeah.
Producer's notes. I just wanted to kind of ask you guys a question in regards to grief and how it may be to process or even explain grief when it comes to children.
So, as a mother, grief can look several different ways, but I try to explain to my children, one, even from the beginning, that even if you have a possession, that possession can be taken away, it can deteriorate, and to not basically hold on to it so hard. And so learning that a loss of something will happen over time, but a loss of someone hasn't been a discussion for me and my children yet, because that hasn't been something that has occurred in our lives. But possessions are things that go and come. So for me, that's the discussion.
I am also a mother, and I can honestly say that my children have experienced multiple losses. So for each child, it was different. Where my son, he was more resilient and he was older, so he understood it a little bit more. For my daughter at the time, she was a little bit younger. I lost my mom. And so it was a little bit more harder for her. So her grief looked different versus what it looked like for my son, because my son thought he had to be strong and hard, because in society, that's what is taught to be, for a man. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to not have these emotions and things like that. But for me, it was important for me to help him to actually work through those processes. I wanted him to grieve. I wanted him to, be able to feel all of those different emotions. And I just explained to him that crying is a natural, emotion. Right. Like, it's okay to be vulnerable. And so through that, I feel like, of course, we all did counseling, but just us being able to be there for each other and actually acknowledge them and help them to go through the process, it helped them. And so, like I said, I can't really say what grief would look like in each child, but for my children, that's what it looked like. And it was easier for me to help them because I was going through it too.
Yeah.
I'm not a regular correspondent here on the podcast. I just help out with the production of it. But I did want to talk about an instance where I could say I had my first instance of grief when I was in high school. My favorite teacher, Miss Judy Singleton from Opelousas, Louisiana, she was my sponsor for Future Business Leaders of America. I was a state officer and everything like that. And going into my junior year, there was a lot of work that I was supposed to be doing with the state and everything like that. And it got to a point, in the beginning of the semester where she kind of stopped coming to school. She would send me text messages on stuff that I would need to do, take care of, and everything like that. And I think it was when open house came and she asked me to set everything up by myself. I was like, yo, Miss Singleton, like, you all right? Like, I haven't really heard from you in a while. And that next week, I found out that she had passed away. She had been battling with breast cancer for some time. And I had a full-on panic attack in school. They had to call the nurse on me. My mom had to come pick me up. It was very difficult. But going back and kind of looking on things, I'd say that grief, not that everyone needs to experience grief, but when you do experience it, it does help you kind of process things better, look at things from a different perspective and everything like that. And I think for me, seeing how much she meant to me drove me to, be a better person in the different things that I was doing. She used to always tell me stop playing around when it came to like the stuff I was doing. And I took that to heart. And, I remember her to this day. So,
yeah.
I know.
That's hard.
Yeah, as a child.
A teacher pass away. I had a teacher pass away. Mr. Reed was amazing. And so, when you have somebody that's impactful to you as a person and then even as a school or a student body, that's hard because everybody's experiencing the same thing. But it's coming together and helping the next person or being a shoulder to lean on for the next person so they can process as well. So, I'm sorry you experienced that.
And I just think that grief is a part of life.
Mm-hmm.
After sitting with you all today, it's a part of life that none of us can escape. Mm-hmm. So we have that awareness, although we will never be prepared for it, but that awareness, then I think it helps the process a little better. Like, you're not the only one that's going through this. Mm-hmm. You're not alone. This didn't happen to you. It happens to everyone. It happens to everyone. Mm-hmm. So, and I think with children, just being honest and using simple words to help them understand, acknowledging their feelings, and letting them know how you feel about the situation, it will bring some calmness to it,
Yeah.
Yes, because children, they watch you.
Mm-hmm.
They do.
So they basically model your behavior. So if, like she said, if you're calm about the situation and you're rational and you're honest with them through the process, then it does help alleviate a lot of that pain and that not understanding situation. But yeah.
And I guess for me, even though my children haven't experienced the loss, like my grandfather died many years ago. Me and him were really close, and I have a picture. They know who he is, even though they weren't even in existence when he passed away. They see me and how I process his memory, and how I don't hold on to the grief, and it's all positive at this point. So being a example up front will help your child kind of get through it. And recognizing their hard time, because they won't recognize it. They'll be frustrated. But just knowing now that how I react to my grandfather's memory is important.
Absolutely.
So we've had a major discussion on grief and loss, and it looks different for everybody, especially in the Black and Brown communities, because we don't know what that looks like, or we don't know how to reach out to someone else. It's always that what goes on
at home stays at
home, or how I feel is how I feel, and I don't share that with anybody. And so it's important to recognize that people feel different or the same emotional impact from these disasters, and being able to reach out and say, okay, this is how I feel. What do I do with it? And so I believe Texas Recovering Together is an amazing program, and it's helped several people, and we're continuing to do great work every day. So I commend Tamika, Shenah, and Raven for their work, because although as team leads, Kesha and I can only do so much, you guys are the ones who have the boots on the ground, and you're seeing the people in the community. So amazing work that you guys are doing.
Absolutely. And thank you for that. And the entire team, both Derecho and Beryl, all of you guys are out there making things happen every day for Harris County residents. And we appreciate that. We really do.
And I will say again, because that is going to be our main thing on our shows, that our services are free.
Our services are free.
You don't have to pay for what we provide to you. So when we go out into the community, please look for our staff with the Texans Recovering Together logo shirts. We're not asking for any payment. We just want to help. So
just have a conversation. If you need someone to talk to, or run something past, maybe your application got denied, or you want more information on the Harris Center services for more long-term care and services. Our folks are out there. Just look, like Alessia said, look for the polo. We're happy to help. And as Tamika mentioned earlier, there's 988 for individuals that, are in crisis, that need someone to talk to immediately. But you can also call and inquire about the Harris Center services through the access line at 713-970-7000 at any time.
At any time. And we also have a website. If you don't want to talk to someone, theharriscenter.org. You can log in, find a clinic near you, find information about, questions that you need answers to, and go to any of our locations. So you guys have done amazing work. So
thank y'all for coming on the show today. We appreciate you guys. All right, so we will be joining you guys monthly. Continue to tune in for the calm after the storm. I'm Kesha Montgomery.
I'm Alessia Parker,
and we'll see you next month with a brand new topic.